You know, I think Maximus said it best in the movie Gladiator. What we do in life echoes through eternity. Think about that for just a second. What we do right here is going to matter not just for today, not just for tomorrow, but ultimately it's going to impact our overall eternity. You know what? We're all going to live throughout eternity. The question that we must wrestle with is this, is where are we going to spend our eternity? You know, in just 13 verses, Jesus takes this thought of our eternity, and he, in 13 verses, through a simple story, a parable about a rich man and Lazarus, he begins to give us some very simple truths, or simple story to create some profound spiritual truths when it comes to this whole thought of eternity and what that means for me and for you. So what I want you to do right now is I just want you to join me, and in your mind, use your imagination. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of settle in around a campfire with Jesus and his disciples, and as he begins to teach them some incredible principles. So join me as we listen and join Jesus on this journey. In Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 21, this is what it says. Jesus said this, "There was a certain rich man who was splendidly clothed in purple and fine linen. He lived each day in luxury. At his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus, who was covered with sores. As Lazarus lay there begging for scraps from the rich man's table, the dogs would come and lick his open sores." Jesus tells this story of these two men. The rich man, we don't know his name, and Lazarus. Lazarus is a pretty common name during that time, and so it's just kind of, here's a story of the rich man and the everyman that we can identify with. What do we learn from these couple of verses right here in Luke chapter 19, verses 20 through 21? What did we learn is this when it comes to eternity? I wrote this down. When it comes to our eternity, what we have in this life does not determine where we will be in the next life. Contrast these two men, the rich man and Lazarus, the everyman, right? The rich man, he had everything this world had to offer. He had power, he had prestige, he had incredible possessions, an awesome home. He had positions in the community. He was very well thought of. He had pretty much everything this life had to offer. But the poor man, Lazarus, laid outside his gate, sick, sores, poor, hungry, destitute, lonely, forgotten. These two men, what we're going to find is this, is that ultimately when they step from this life into the next, what they experienced here, their situations and their circumstances, what they have and what they didn't have, all of that doesn't matter when it comes to eternity. Jesus said it this way, Mark chapter 8, verse 36. He said this, "And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul?" So we see here, now here's the deal. Think about it this way. There's nothing wrong with having good stuff. But as Dave Ramsey would say it this way, having good stuff is great, but make sure the great things, the good stuff doesn't have you, right? In other words, are you using it and leveraging it as a good steward of the things that you have? Are you doing that, or are those things controlling your life? The accumulation of more stuff, is that what's controlling your life? Jesus said it. What if you had everything, but you lost your soul? What benefit is it to you now and eternity? But Jesus goes on in this parable in Luke chapter 16, verses 22 and 23, and he says this. He said, "Finally the poor man died and was carried by the angels to sit beside Abraham at the heavenly banquet. The rich man also died and was buried, and he went to the place of the dead." Now I'm going to get a little serious, maybe a little dark, but this is what Jesus is telling us. Listen to me. We are all going to die. We're all going to die someday. Doesn't matter if you're rich, doesn't matter if you're poor, doesn't matter if you're married or you're single, Doesn't matter what your race is. Doesn't matter what your gender is. We are all going to die one day. And no matter who we are or what we have or how we live, one day we're all going to die. So knowing that death is inevitable, knowing that it is inevitable, I think it causes each of us to ask ourselves two very important questions. The first question is this, is why am I living? What is the purpose of our life? What is your mission? What is your goal? Excuse me, what are those things that you're seeking after? Why do you live? Why are you living your life the way that you are? That's a question when we are faced with our own mortality that we need to answer. Second question is this, is how am I living? Not just why, the purpose, but how. This is your behaviors. These are your thoughts. These are your actions. How you live your life, is it reflecting why you're living your life? If you say you're a follower of Christ, do your words, your deeds, your thoughts, do those reflect what you believe? I talk about this a whole lot, is that probably the greatest gap in all of our lives is between what we say we believe and how we behave. And I think when it comes to that, there's things that we've got to wrestle with and ask ourselves another, maybe additional question to this of how do we live? Is that what do I need to start in my life? What are those things that I know I should be doing that I'm not? And another would be this, is not just what I need to start, but what do I need to stop? What are those things? What are those relationships? What are those habits? What are those attitudes that I have in my life that are dragging me down and helping or keeping me from living out my why, my purpose in my life? When I think about this, that we're all going to die one day, I think about this thought or this song that come from Tim McGraw. Tim McGraw, at my heart, I'm a country music fan. I love country music. I love pretty much all those different artists and stuff like that. But Tim McGraw sings a song that I think is very applicable to this process or this principle that we're all going to die one day, where he said this, and the name of his song was this, is Live Like You Were Dying. And he says, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. So what I want to do right now, let me unfold my paper. I wanted you to hear those lyrics that Tim shares in that song. And this song starts out about this guy getting news, difficult medical news, that he's probably going to die very soon. And this is what Tim says in the song. How does it hit you when you get that kind of news? Man, what did you do? And he said, I was finally the husband that most of the time I wasn't. And I became a friend would like to have. And all of a sudden, going fishing wasn't such an imposition. And I went 3 times that year. I lost my dad. And well, I finally read the good book, and I took a good, long, hard look at what I would do if I could do it all again. And then the chorus, he says, and then I went skydiving. I went Rocky Mountain climbing. I went 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. And I loved deeper, and I spoke sweeter, and I gave forgiveness that I'd been denying. And he said, someday I hope you live. I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. Like tomorrow was a gift. And you've got eternity to think about what you would do with it. What could you do with it? What did I do with it? What would I do with it? And he said, someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. So what I want to do is I want to kind of pause right now in the middle of this parable of Jesus. In the next video, we're going to finish up this parable. But I think right now is we need to take some time to wrestle with those two questions that I mentioned earlier. Why am I living? Why? What is your purpose? And at the end of the day, you know what? We all are going to face some things that are going to either cause us to pull ourselves closer to God, or we're going to choose to let those things pull us away from God. Why am I living? Here's what I know that God has. God has a purpose and a plan for every one of us. Jeremiah said it this way, "For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord." What an incredible promise. God knows the plans that he has for us. And if God has a plan for us, we can know this, that God has got his plan is the very, very best. And then it says, second question is, how am I living? Take some time right now. And is your behavior matching your beliefs? What do you need to start? What do you need to stop? Who do you need to tell that you love? Who do you need to ask forgiveness of? Who do you need to extend forgiveness to? Who do you need to call? Who do you need to spend some time with? How are you living your life? So, in this story, who are you? Are you the rich man, relying on what you have and who you are to define your purpose and your meaning in life? Is it all about you? Or are you Lazarus? Are you relying on something else besides your present circumstances to define your purpose and meaning? And what we're going to see here is that in the rest of this parable, that the promise is this, is that because Lazarus had put his faith in something besides himself, he had put his faith in God, we're going to see that his life in eternity is going to be incredible because he spends it with the Lord, as opposed to the rich man who spends it differently apart from the Lord. Why do you live? How are you living? And as I close today, think of those words of Tim McGraw. Someday I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. If you got some questions about what it means to have a journey with Jesus, my name is Jay Thompson. I'd love to connect with you here at simplychurch.online and talk about what that journey with Jesus looks like. If I can be of any encouragement, if I can be of any way to pray with you and to talk with you about a journey with Jesus, I'd love to do that. You can go to my email address, jay@simplychurch.online. Shoot me an email and I'd love to follow up with you. But here's the deal. What we have today doesn't determine where we're going to be for eternity. And this side of heaven, we know this, or this side of eternity, we are all going to die one day. And we get to choose today where we want to spend our eternity. And that has everything to do with how we choose and what we choose to do with Jesus. Hope you have a blessed day. Look forward to sharing with you some more about this parable of the rich man and Lazarus. But today, what would happen if you started living your life knowing that you would die one day? Live like you were